Welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, a podcast that serves as your backstage pass to an uplifting and positive view into the collaborative playbook of higher education presidents and their senior leaders. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Gross. Join me weekly for discussions with some of the best minds in higher education leadership. From presidents to provosts, enrollment managers to CFOs, CIOs to chief diversity officers, this show is your ticket to the most future-forward strategies that are impacting real results on college campuses today. Each week, I will be posting highlights and insights from our show, so let's connect. Visionary Voices is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Well, welcome to Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, and I'm so excited about this week's episode. We're here speaking with two amazing professionals. First off, we have President Peter Eden from Franklin Pierce University and the Vice President for Marketing and Communications at Franklin Pierce, Mark DiPietro. So much is said in higher education about institutions that take a multi-campus approach to innovation in higher education. And let's start off with you, President Eden. Franklin Pierce University has undergone significant transformation under your leadership. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about your vision for Franklin Pierce and how it aligns with your university's mission and values?
We've been quite intentional about the changes we need to make, but we will not lose sight of the fact that fundamentally, this is a really safe, inclusive, supportive learning environment. That is the Ringe flagship campus and all of our centers across the U.S. So that kind of keeps us grounded. But we've indeed decided to invest heavily in our graduate health professions programs in Texas, Arizona, and 2 in New Hampshire, and as well support this important campus, this residential campus in New Hampshire in various ways.
Hearing, your length of tenure and, of course, knowing the types of innovative things that are happening at Franklin Pierce is incredibly exciting. I want to dive right in, if it's okay, the Career Paths at Pierce program. If you could talk to me about how this initiative integrates with FPU's broader recruitment and retention strategy. So tell me a little bit about Career Paths and why it's so important so early on in your presidency.
First of all, we have... Mark and I inherited this Paths at Pierce, right? And this is another component, which was one of the reasons why I accepted this job. These are accelerated programs or undergraduate to graduate tracks that we have. And, over the past 5 months or so, and Mark's been here, about 3 months or so, but we worked together for 10 years at Landmark College. We've considered the things which we could do, which would, we think, help us weather the headwinds of higher education, which are typically the demographic decline in the Northeast. And at some of our meetings, I've talked about institutions like Northeastern University and Endicott College. I used to work at Endicott College. These have baked into the cake internship career readiness components. Mm-hmm. These are not places that just say, oh, you can do an internship. Every college or university says that. And it just dawned on me that those places do not have many enrollment challenges. And what could fit here at Pierce, knowing how pragmatic many of the parents are and the students are in terms of the need for value in their investment. And knowing we have Paths at Pierce, we just decided, let's put career in front of that. So Career Paths at Pierce, and let's not just have experiential learning options. Let's build in internships and other career readiness credit-bearing components. We believe strongly that our students and their families will very much look forward to knowing that they will have work experience when they're here at the university. So it was as simple as that. What are the places that are succeeding in this difficult industry doing? One of them is career readiness, going all in. So we decided to do that. Right, Mark?
That's right. And as Peter said, we work together at Landmark College, which is a small college for students with learning differences. And under Peter's tenure, We very successfully expanded what they call the Career Connections Office, which took the same model. It was that it's very important for parents and students to know that there's a path to something beyond college. That's the whole point of getting a degree, right? So that was a successful model that has, I think, inspired both of us to look at, from my position, look at the marketing opportunities to go out and say, this isn't just a college education, it's a path to a rewarding career.
Okay.
Mark, wasn't that fascinating at Landmark College? Because when we came in, it was just pivoting from an associate degree only to a baccalaureate granting institution as well. That was in my first 6 months at Landmark. And I remember, oh my gosh, we suddenly have baccalaureate graduates. They will be measured now by whether they get a job or not. That gave us the impetus. Now, 10 years later, here we are together at Franklin Pierce, and every family expects that. Isn't that why you buy college? To get a job, right? To get a career. We knew we needed to do it.
Yeah. And Mark, I know you just started. This is kind of right in my wheelhouse, but talk to our audience a little bit about how you've, right in the start of your tenure, partnered with enrollment management to make sure, in the midst of this recruitment cycle, that this message is getting out to your prospective students.
Yeah, for sure. So, I think anyone in the higher education industry knows that it's really crucial for marketing and enrollment to have a close relationship and partnership, and to be crafting the messages that not only your prospective students, but their families are going to hear and that will resonate with them. So we're working really closely together, not only on that messaging, but to beef up the vehicles by which we get that out. So digital marketing, of course, and all other methods, our website, our social media have to reinforce that, this thing was called Paths at Pierce, we're now calling Career Paths at Pierce, because we're really emphasizing that the outcome is a career. So we are working really closely to, not only tinker the language, but to look at the curriculum and how that's supporting in the classroom what the career outcomes here. And, it's really interesting for Peter and me. We're sitting in Franklin Pierce University's Fitzwater Center, which really supports the communication programs here and has a very clear pathway for students to go into things like media or sports broadcasting. So it's being lived out already at Franklin Pierce. We're just emphasizing that it's across the curriculum, no matter what your major or focus area is.
This is really terrific. And in a second, I want to dive in specifically to your multi-campus model at Franklin Pierce. But as I hear the two of you talk about your past synergies working together at Landmark, I want to address for our audience this entrepreneurial approach that's taking place. And I'd love your opinion on why it's so essential for universities today to adopt a strong business model. And then maybe weave in a little bit the role that entrepreneurship plays in ensuring this institutional stability and growth that everybody is frankly striving for today.
I'll take a shot at it if you'd like. Some institutions, the minority, they have an endowment that's large enough, $1 billion endowment where the interest and dividends can run much of the operating budgets. The rest of us, which is probably 95%, our endowments, they range, but they're typically not large enough where you can use that the proceeds from those investments to run the operating budget. So you need to find revenue. Now, over the past 10 years or so, in the Northeast anyways, there have been fewer and fewer students of college-going age. And so the universities and colleges have responded by giving out more and more aid in order to, make it easy for the family to make a decision. Now, of course, when you give out more scholarship, that's a wonderful thing, but you realize less net revenue. Yeah. So the only way to get around that is to bring in more students at less net revenue, and boom, suddenly there are no more students. And you wake up with a super high discount rate, you don't have enough net revenue. So that's my long-winded way of saying when an institution has other revenue streams, including a fundraising platform, that's one way to handle the challenges of not having enough or having as many students as you may have had, say, 6 or 8 years ago. With Franklin Pierce, I was really interested in this opportunity in part because we already had, due to the people who came before us, thank goodness, they already built these graduate health professions programs elsewhere. And those cost a lot to run, but there's a tremendous need in society for health professions workers, especially with rural health care. So fortunately, we have that element to support our traditional campus operation in rural New Hampshire. Traditional institutions in rural locations are struggling. We have our challenges here, but it's a wonderful, wonderful campus, beautiful campus. But fortunately, this is not all we do. We have a pretty successful online program, and then we of course have the offsite grad centers to help us with revenue to keep us going as an enterprise.
Okay. I think our audience is going to be really interested in this. And I just want to summarize what you so well articulated when you think about the market challenges, declining demographics, change in consumer mindset, and unsustainable tuition discounting rate, and how important it is, particularly in rural areas, to find alternative revenue streams. I could guarantee there are listeners who are listening very intently, going through very similar things. And I think there's a lot of talk in higher ed, is the multi-campus model, a real viable option to help institutions. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about FPU's graduate centers. I know you have one in Ground Rock, Texas, Goodyear, Arizona, Manchester, of course, and Lebanon, New Hampshire. Talk to me about what inspired this multi-campus model. And I think our audience would really be interested in understanding why these particular areas for FPU.
Well, Mark, as you know, when we were together at Landmark College in Vermont, we created the Success Center in San Mateo, California. And of course, I used to call it a micro campus, which was an embellishment. This is a marketing thing. These at Pierce, they're not campuses so much as they are centers. Some of them are standalone buildings. They're quite nice, but these are not typically residential things. But I have no problem calling those nano campuses or micro campuses. And some of them have a very unique hybrid approach, which is online courses and then specific weeks of immersion in person. So it's an interesting new model for graduate programs in say, physician assistant studies. But these came in well before Mark and I started here. Again, people knew of the challenges facing rural colleges in New England and understood that the demography was frankly stronger in the Southwest. So thank goodness for that. What we have to do now is we have to make sure we support these and build upon them. There very well could be opportunities for early college in Round Rock, Texas, or Goodyear, Arizona. There's a growing demographic, particularly the Hispanic demographic is growing, particularly in the Southwest. And there are opportunities for us beyond the graduate health professions programs. For now, we're focusing on those. We're going to add a few more, including Lebanon and Manchester, New Hampshire. But in the Southwest, we'll add a few more. And these are just really prudent ways to go about your business model. Of course, don't just expect a rural college campus, New England, to make it. Unless you are an Ivy League college that has a $1.5 billion endowment, then you have the financial wherewithal to weather any enrollment challenges. So thank goodness that Franklin Pierce is diversified in its revenue streams.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that and how you market that. Mark, you mentioned this earlier, but do you have different media plans for each of these campuses? How do you go about managing that given the geographic diversity of each region?
Yeah, we do. And, right now we really concentrate on our digital plans. So we are building out separate strategies and unique strategies for each of the centers because of exactly that. And, the other thing, since Peter mentioned the Success Center that was established at Landmark College, one of the things we really looked at in the establishment of that center was what services and programs might be lacking in a geographic region and might be needed. And in California, the West Coast in general, options for students who learn differently were fairly hard to find. And so that the establishment of that center was really filling a need, and that informed how we marketed that as well. And it's the same that goes for our FPU centers in Texas and Arizona, and even in the other parts of New Hampshire, that, these are areas that may have a critical need for the programs we're offering there. And that's how we're going about our marketing and finding the customers and, getting the messaging out about what we do and why it's necessary.
President Eden, you had said earlier, essentially students and families more than anything are really looking to buy the opportunity for a job. And Oftentimes when you talk to faculty around campuses, the discussion is how do you kind of balance this idea of helping students understand their opportunities for immediate employment with this idea of fostering lifelong learning and being adaptable as technology changes, AI comes about, how is that going to change the job market? How do you get faculty bought in and kind of thinking about this idea of teaching for immediate employment and then kind of balancing this idea of teaching for lifelong learning?
Some faculty could see this as a threat to a liberal arts education, but that's not what we're doing here. This is a liberal arts institution with professional programming. We always have been that much. And I think that the faculty here, number one, these faculty and staff, I think they're adaptable for a number of reasons. They've had to adapt, sometimes intentionally, and other times they just needed to for the business model. But I think they recognize that we're not just bringing someone in where they'll be bereft of the liberal arts. We're here to educate the whole person, right? And the companies, they often want core competencies like the ability to listen, the ability to write, executive function strengths of organization, much more so than how to actually work a certain machine in a biotech lab or in a communications lab, right? They want these core competencies. So the faculty here understand that the stronger our students are all around, the better they will succeed in any internship because the internship site will train them on the specifics of the job. They just want people that are educated, enlightened, can think critically, and have these other strengths. So we are not supplanting, we're not usurping, we're not doing any of that with the curriculum. We're just providing these experiences where they can put their strengths to work.
That's great. I had a really interesting episode last month about teaching faculty how to teach, and when I think about online or hybrid pedagogy, how is Franklin Pierce thinking about helping to prepare their faculty to be the best teachers possible as you talk about your bold vision?
In many ways, the faculty don't need to change anything. I've been very, very clear that, for the credit-bearing career readiness components, we're not talking about resume workshops, which of course are valuable. We're talking about the things that are needed to succeed in a work environment. I just mentioned that. The faculty just keep doing your job. Biochemistry professors just keep doing what you're doing. It'll be an evolution in many, many ways. We'll get feedback from some of these internships about the things they experience. Maybe that will affect the curriculum, but it's up to the professors. They have the intellectual freedom to alter their courses. So I don't really see much of a change. This is what's really good about this. This is not we didn't come in and break the family china, Mark and I.
Yeah.
We came in and we said, okay, we have a good product here. Nobody knows about us. We're not advertising enough. Mark's off to the races. I came in, I realized what will move the needle so we can compete with a much less expensive, state options for students. It's without a doubt starting your career while you're still in college.
Yeah. As being a fairly new leader to Franklin Pierce, I think our audience would be really interested in hearing from you about how you inspire confidence as a leader amongst your senior leadership team. How do you inspire collaboration coming in as a new president, especially under times that require such quick action? Particularly, it's clear that you have done that.
I don't think I have any special qualities in that regard. I think once people know me, they know that I'm fairly high energy. I didn't come from higher education. I came from private industry, biotech. And granted, it was many, many years ago. But I had an unusual path to higher ed. I worked in the biopharmaceutical industry, and that was a really difficult industry. And so I think some of my impatience, or rather my eagerness, my bias for action comes from the fact that I started in a different industry. Now, having said that, I was a tenured professor and a dean, and so I've got that sort of credibility. But people realize, I think, that I'm very much roll up my sleeves, want to be involved. Mark knows this, of course, because we've been such close creative and strategic partners, for 10 years, working on everything together. But if you're not a risk taker, you're a caretaker. And that is not what you need in higher education.
Yeah.
So they understand the risks. If they're sensible, let's do it. Let's not stop at the water's edge.
Yeah.
I would just add, since I'm part of the senior leadership team, I think what people respond to really well from Peter is transparency, number one, which, as we know, a lot of leadership can sort of traffic in obfuscation and, dancing around topics. And Peter's very direct and very transparent. And I think everyone, not just senior leadership, feels like they know what the challenges are. They know what needs to be done. And as Peter said, he's there to be part of the team that's getting it done.
Thanks, Mark.
I love that. And I think that's a quote, that we could pull out. If you're not a risk taker, you're a caretaker. And when you think about today's market and the need to be taking calculated risks to generate revenue, I think that's something that people could really resonate with.
Okay, but be careful. I've read that somewhere. So don't ascribe it to me. I'm sure that I got it from someone else. I don't need any plagiarism charges against me. But it's always resonated with me. And it's so true. Except you just have to make sure that you do it fully. Not to tie a thread through marketing and advertising with Mark's area, but you've got to go all in on these things, right? I mean, an advertising campaign in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for 4 weeks, that won't move the needle, right? You have to be sustained. And as Mark knows, sometimes you have to try everything, then everything works.
Yeah.
Then you bump up against the resource reality. And this is what the challenge at Franklin Pierce University, faced by many, is, there can be scarcity, as we've been handling the demographic decline in the past 6 to 8 years in New England. You have some financial scarcity. We're running a great operation here. We're investing in ourselves, but we need to invest more. Yet, where's the money coming from? We don't have that huge endowment. So somehow we've tried to create a blue sky growth mentality when there really is a scarcity mentality in higher ed. That, to me, if you wanted to crystallize it, how do you get your people to operate like there is a growth when there is genuine scarcity? That's the most difficult thing. Somehow we did it at Landmark College, but it wasn't easy, Mark. Remember, we went through some really hard times, and same for Pierce. But Pierce, I'll tell you, I'm not going to say something like we're going to be the ideal college of the future, because everybody says that, but we're pretty close to it. We have online offerings, we have face-to-face offerings. We're a Division II athletics powerhouse, without a doubt. And we are also across the U.S., where the demography is different and better. Thing is, we can't just sit back and admire this. We have to intentionally support it through fundraising and other choices we make.
So you've clearly hit the ground running a million miles per hour, the two of you. I feel your synergy. How do you balance needing to move quickly, as you've clearly done, with thinking about your priorities, over the next 5 to 10 years? What is your vision on how you're going to help guide a collaborative vision at FPU in the years to come?
We just need to let people know that this is a really authentic, traditional, yet entrepreneurial institution. People just don't know about us. There's another analogy of it's a brick wall analogy, where when you come into a new leadership position, there's a brick wall and it's got some bad bricks. You don't get rid of those bricks quickly, the wall will fall down. If you move too quickly because you haven't listened, and you remove a good brick, the wall will fall down. The challenge is moving really swiftly, but in an informed way. That is challenging indeed. So we're trying to go at twice the pace right now, and realize, okay, let's be careful, but let's move swiftly. And so that way we know what to change, what to keep. And hopefully in a year we'll be stronger. I know we're going to be stronger in a year. A year after that, we'll be stronger still, I think. And so at the end of the day, what we want to say is, yes, rural college campuses without huge endowments are very much challenged in New England. That doesn't mean they're all going out of business. As a matter of fact, some are successful. I want to study the ones that are successful. I think in a year or two, when we improve even further, people will look at us and say, how the heck did they do that?
I think our listeners will feel inspired, especially being how many institutions are dealing with new leadership and seeing how quickly you're moving. We do have a segment of our audience that are aspiring leaders, and part of Visionary Voices is this counter narrative to who would ever want to be a college president. So both of you as experienced leaders, do you have any advice for young listeners, maybe employees who are currently working at college and universities who want to work their way up to the ranks and be a vice president or a president one day?
From my perspective, I'd say learn everything about everything, which is I have a background in journalism, and that's kind of what you have to do there too, right? You need to be a quasi expert at everything, or at least know an inch deep about every subject you can. And I think in higher education, it's really important to abandon the silo mentality and just learn everything you can about enrollment, about fundraising, about student life. And, of course, if you're a marketer, you have to know your audience. You have to know a lot about psychology and consumer behavior. So I would say that's not only in higher education, that's just good career advice. Learn as much as you can about everything you can.
That's amazing. Really good advice. Yeah.
I would say I've moved up through the administrative ranks almost entirely because of it gives me the opportunity to help young people. It sounds corny, but it's true. When I first started as a department chairperson, it blew me away that I, with one stroke of my pen, could say, don't worry, young learner. You do not have to take anatomy and physiology 2 again. That's ridiculous. I countermand that decision. You're off to the races. And having that kind of authority was terrific because I remember being in that position before and, of the student. So I loved being able to make decisions that directly affect young people. It sounds corny, but it's totally true. But my advice would be enjoy the challenges because there are so many and they change all the time, but mostly be positive. Even in the dark times, be positive. Everyone's looking to you. So when I was at one place years ago and things were challenging there, the president was always positive. And because of that, we felt emboldened.
No. It's so true. I remember starting my career, and my first president that I worked for, who's a great mentor, said, there are two things that I look for in all leaders: positive and collaborative. And I still remember that today. This has been an amazing conversation. We have a playlist on Spotify, Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, and we ask all of our presidents on the podcast to pick a song that exemplifies the spirit of their institution or what it means to be a college president. And President Eden, I'd love to give you an opportunity to pick a song to add to our Spotify playlist to close us out today.
Oh, no, I was warned and I didn't do my homework on this. Oh, no. Are you serious?
I think of like Bruce Springsteen, Born to Run or something, because the two of you have just hit the ground running 1,000,000 miles per hour.
I won't say Stay Free by The Clash, even though it's my favorite song, because that implies that we escaped a certain something. So I'm not sure. I'm going to have to take a pass on this one, if you don't mind.
No,
there are so many good songs, but I'm afraid.
No, I don't mind. I don't mind at all. And, I thank the two of you so much for being on the show. The work that you're doing at Franklin Pierce in such quick time is really, really impressive. And I think our audience are going to appreciate that. They're going to really appreciate thinking deeply about the multi-campus model that you have at Franklin Pierce. So I thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Bryan.
Great.
Visionary Voices, the College President's Playbook, is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help higher ed marketers and admission professionals find their next big ideas and feature a huge selection of the industry's best. As your hosts, learn from Artis Cadu, Jamie Hunt, Allison Tercio, and so many more of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the leading AI-powered, all-in-one student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful, personalized, and engaging interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.